This is an awkward scenario. No cards in hand, one monster on board. What could I possibly do? I guess it's time to Chazz it up! What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Mad Pig and Matt here. So, the Blazing Vortex dropping. There's a host of new cool cards that came out. And amongst all the cards that came out were some cards that allow for some crazy shenanigans to be done in this deck that you see before you. We're going to Chazz it up today, people, with Ojamas. So, like all before, I'm going to show you guys the deck real quick, and then we'll go into the semantics a little bit later. So, yeah, let's start this out with the main deck. Alright. Thing that never changes. All you really need is to run 2 of every Ojama. 2 green, 2 yellow, 2 black. Well, every vanilla Ojama. In this particular build, the super chazzy Chazztastic 5000 build, you need 3 copies of Ojama Blue. I'm running 2 copies of Ojama Red. And 3 copies of the new Ojama Pink. Alright, for the Armed Dragon count, 3-3, 2-5, 2 7s, and 1 of the 10. Now for the next portion of this Chazztastic build, we are running the VW X, Y, and Z. Yep. You finally have a reason to play these cards. Alright. And now for the non-Chazz cards. 3 copies of Gamma Seal and 2 Ash Blossom. Alright, on the spells, 3 copies of OJA Simulation, 3 copies of OJA Match, 2 copies of OJA Magic, 1 Harpy's Feather Duster, 1 Mind Control, and 1 Monster Reborn. And for traps, real simple. You play the 1 Ojama Pajama, and then the 1 copy of Red Reboot. Now into the extra deck. For fusions, yes, fusions, you play the VW, the XYZ, the VW XYZ, and then the Armed Dragon Catapult Cannon. These are your main, like, boss thing. For links, 1 Link Spider, 1 IP Masquerena, 1 Nightmare Cerberus, Phoenix, and Unicorn. I played 1 copy of the Draco Master of the True Tenyi, Sarija, Apollosa, access code, 1 of this new Underworld Goddess Lady, and then to round it all out, the 1 XYZ, the Ronin Raccoon. Alright, now on to explaining things. Alright, so before we get into the semantics of what these are, why in the hell are all of these cards together in one deck? Well, if you watch GX, you know that Chazz was forced to use these guys as an act of, you know, humbling this narcissistic little character and forcing him to kind of come to realize that, you know, don't judge a book by its cover, because even the smallest, most insignificant thing can end up building to some crazy shenanigans. And via proxy of this life lesson BS, Konami kind of made their hand to make it where you have to combine 3 things that shouldn't work together into something that works together. And this deck will kind of show you the best way to make, you know, the ultimate anime protagonist deck. So let's get to explaining the 3 parts of this deck. Alright, first off we're going to start with the Ojamas. Ojamas are real simple. They're level 2 light beast type monsters that debuted in Dark Crisis and inevitably had the other two come out during Invasion of Chaos. To put it simply, these guys are an absolute pitiful joke, the level of Skull Servant. Mostly in that their stats suck and they do nothing. But because they're kind of funny looking little cards, and Konami, for some reason, has a weird sense of humor, they decided over the years to print support cards. The first wave of support cards were actually these two right here, blue and red. If you've followed this channel for a long time, you'll know that these cards are pretty vital in the success of this deck. More specifically blue, but we'll get to him in 1 second. Because more recently, the last card they decided to debut to help aid this archetype is this new guy, Ojama Pink. So we're just going to kind of go over in levels of how the new support has helped these guys, starting with probably what I think to be the least important to the most important. Starting out with this guy. Ojama Pink, the newest card, is essentially a Dark World Dealings. Because what he does is when he is sent to either from the field or hand to the graveyard, he basically lets you and your opponent draw one card and then discard a card. He's useful in digging through your deck, and he's another name to banish off of the Ojama spells and traps. Alright. Ojama Red here, in most cases in different builds, and the build I usually would play, is actually one of the most important ones, because he takes all those vanillas out of your hand and allows you to just pump out a bunch of Exceed monsters. In this particular build, he's not actually that important, but he's still really good in helping you build the board and bait out through all of your opponent's hand traps and back row options. So that's why I play 2 copies of him. Now, the heart and soul and single most important card of the whole deck, Ojama Blue. What is Ojama Blue? Long story short, when he is destroyed by battle, you can search 2 Ojama cards. Yes, cards. And it's the subsequent cards that I'm about to show you are why this is the absolute backbone of your whole deck. Because basically, in order to achieve the monsters in the extra deck, you need him for this particular build. And I will admit, though, his effect is kind of old and antiquated because battle phase shenanigans just aren't very good anymore. But regardless, this card's great. And any game I did win, it's because I got to resolve him. So, yeah. More on that a little bit later in a combo near the end of the video. Now, why is the card thing specifically important? Well, because that is where the mixing of the cards comes in play. Because Konami decided, via power of plot, to print all these random cards that work with random things to help you achieve this weird amalgamation of a deck that can pump out some super cool boss monsters. Starting out originally with the oldest useful support card, Ojama. When this card is sent to the graveyard, it will add 1 copy of black, yellow, and green. And yes, it has to be all 3 of them at once, which is kind of annoying, and which is why you play the 2 sets of normals to go with the 2 sets of this. Now, this is an absolutely fantastic discard fodder that does some stupid shenanigans. With this, the single most important quick play of the deck, Ojama. Ojama here has the effect that you discard an Ojama card to then add 1 Ojama plus 1 armed dragon monster from your deck to your hand. Then immediately after this resolves, you normal summon 1 of the added monsters. You pretty much use this to get blue. And if you happen to ditch the Ojama, you get all the Ojamas to your hand. And that's insane. And since it's a quick play, you can use it during the battle phase. So you search it off of blue, and you do some crazy, crazy shenanigans. And also note, this and the next card I'm about to show both also have the added benefit of you can exile this card from your graveyard to target 3 of your banished Ojama monsters, shuffle them into your deck, and draw 1 card. Why would they be banished? Well, that's where this card comes into play, OJA-Assimilation. OJA-Assimilation here, essentially you reveal a light machine fusion monster in your extra deck, and then you proceed to banish from your hand, field, or graveyard Ojama monsters equal to the materials listed on that card, and then you proceed to special summon them from your deck. So that'll synergize with some of the cards you'll see later. But this card is absolutely insane. And generally when you're doing your blue combo, you end with this because it'll help you create something crazy. And the last Ojama spell and trap I play is the Ojama Pajama. What this does is either during your main phase, you can add an Ojama card and then discard a card. Or if this is sent to the graveyard, you can special summon as many of your banished Ojama monsters as possible. And it also has the other effect that if an armed dragon and or light machine fusion monster you control be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can banish Ojamas from your hand, field, or graveyard instead to prevent the destruction. It's really, really good. And also helps fuel the spell cards. So, yeah. This card's kind of cool. So now you know the Ojamas. What about the other cards? Alright, these parts kind of quick. For the armed dragons, in this strategy, their effects are kind of just irrelevant, but armed dragon level 3, 5, and 7 all have the effect that you can discard a monster to either level up or level down one a copy of armed dragon either from your deck or hand, which is pretty cool, helps mitigate some stuff. And essentially you just discard monsters to end on 10. I'll get to 10 in a second. These guys' effects are real simple. When he's discarded for a dragon monster, his effect, he draws you a card. And he's discarded for a dragon monster's effect, or a wind dragon specifically, they all are wind dragons, you can see, he adds a level 5 or higher wind dragon type monster. That's super cool. In armed dragon deck specifically, he's super good. 7 here, when he's discarded for a wind dragon, he will add an armed dragon card from your deck to your hand, which in this build, you're only playing the armed dragon monsters, but there's some spells and traps for a dedicated one that are real good. And an armed dragon level 10 here, when he's summoned via the effect of an armed dragon, he gains multiple effects based on his attack. I didn't resolve this guy once today, but the reason you play him is because when you have his attack at 3,000 plus, he lets you discard a card to pop a card on your opponent's field as a quick effect, and then he gains 1,000. And then, if you can get him to over 10,000 attack, I think he wipes the whole field. He's super good, but he's kind of just a means to get 7 into the graveyard and give you a free body. So, yeah. And you need the level 7 specifically in order to summon one of your extra deck guys that does some crazy shenanigans. But yeah. These are the armed dragon monsters. So, on to the last part of the deck. VWXYZ are basically the precursors to the ABC monsters, in that they're light machine type monsters that work with union cards. These are just vanillas, because these guys are supposed to have the effect that they can equip themselves to one of these vanillas, and then for the most part all they do is basically protect them by battle or let them gain, attack and defense. That's really all they do. Otherwise, I'm gonna be real honest with you, these guys kind of suck, because their fusions all require that you banish them from field, unlike the ABCs, which you can banish them from grave. And then none of these guys really like do anything aside from just do some union stuff, but you have to play them in order to summon these really cool boss monsters. So yeah, that's it. Their stats are okay. These two can do something. He has 1800 attack, but yeah. On to what these guys turn into in order to actually do stuff. Alright, to round it out, in the last part of cards you need to know, I know there's a lot of explaining, but still, is pretty much what the Ojama simulation is used for, and that's essentially to summon these guys, so you have a use for these guys. Alright, quick explanation. Again, this banishes Ojamas from your graveyard to special summon the monsters listed in the names for these cards. As you can clearly note, this one will summon VW, this one will summon X, Y, and Z. But the VW, he does nothing. You can change the position of a monster on the field. He sucks. You just need him to essentially summon a better card. And then XYZ here is actually real good, because he's a non-once per turn, discard cards, pop cards on the field. And this deck can generate a metric ton of hand advantage, so that's kind of irrelevant. And then, clearly as you can see, VWXYZ then proceed to make VWXYZ Dragon Catapult Cannon. Also, I should make note, in order to summon all these guys, you have to banish the cards listed on them from your field to then summon. That's why I don't think these are that great, but they are super fun to drop on people because of the last card I'll show you here shortly. But all three of these are summoned the exact same way. You banish the materials to make this, you banish the materials to make this, and then you have to banish these two in order to make this. This guy has the effect that he can banish a card on the field. Super good. He has 3000 attack. That's super good. And if you happen to special summon him and an armed dragon level 7, because new Thunder armed dragons have the added effect that they count as the armed dragon that they are the level of. Like, their name becomes that on the field engraved. That's important because it helps you summon this random boss monster that is basically your win button. Armed Dragon Catapult Cannon. What is this card? It is a 3,500, 3,000 machine light. How long? I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I think at level 10 monster that is insane. The summoning condition is absolutely stupid because the way you summon it is you banish from either your field or graveyard a VWXYZ and an armed dragon level 7 that were properly special summoned this turn to then give you a guy that, let me just read this to you, ignoring that first effect I just told you. Your opponent cannot activate cards or effects with the same name as any banished card. Once per turn during your opponent's turn, quick effect, you can banish one card from your deck or extra deck face up to then banish all cards your opponent controls and in their graveyard. It's 99% of the time, they'll probably be playing multiples of any given card. And what this does is essentially acts as a means to blanket negate everything and wipe their whole field for at least one turn. So all of those resources that you spent to make this guy are worth it because he is absolutely insane and for the most part win you the game that you drop him. As well as making your opponent go, how the hell did you do that? So yeah, this card absolutely rules. And this build specifically is meant to turbo out this guy. How do you do that? Well, I'll show you how to do that off of one card. Yes, one card. So let's kind of rewind to the very beginning of the video and I'm going to show you how to Chazz it up. Okay, folks. How to Chazz it up. Alright. Basically, you need your opponent to have a monster that you can ram into 3 times and not die. That's why you play the Gamma Seal. Because you can ram into it 3 times and not die. If you're worried about back row, of course you have your 2 win buttons. But for the most part, if the back row isn't reactive, which most of the time it's not likely to be, you should be in the clear once you're in battle phase. But okay, so you have your opponent's monster that you can hit 3 times. You go blue. Go into battle phase. Blue will knock into that to then search you 2 Ojama cards. Either Ojama match, Oja magic. While still in battle phase, use the Oja match to give you your Thunder Dragon or your Armed Dragon in your blue. Then normal the next blue. Then the Oja magic will then put 3 vanilla Ojamas in your hand. Alright. This blue will then ram himself to then get you another Oja match and an Oja assimilation. To which this Oja match will then turn into your 3rd blue, another Armed Thunder Dragon, normal the blue, ram the blue, get your other Oja assimilation, your Oja match, use your last Oja match, get rid of your Ojama, to then get you your 3rd Oja, or your 3rd Armed Dragon, and random Ojama. Be red or pink, just depends, but in this case we're just going to do red. Then use that normal summon on your Armed Thunder Dragon. Go into main phase number 2. Your Armed Thunder Dragon will turn himself into 5. 5 will then turn himself into 7. You could theoretically go from here, but most of the time, since you got to banish him anyways, and you have the discard fodder, I'll then just turn 7 into 10. Alright. And now from here, you use your first Oja assimilation. I tend to go with the XYZ first, because you can then, because you banish your 3 Ojama guys. Kind of doesn't matter. Most of the time I'll just do the vanillas to start out. Then turn into the XYZ. To get rid of that. Summon this guy. Uses effect, you know. I guess just discard random back row. If you're doing this first turn, you still have your other cards in your hand. Continue to pop stuff, whatever. Then use the next Oja assimilation to get rid of, you know, 2 more Ojamas for the VW. To then get the VW. Then turn the VW into VW. To then turn VW XYZ into VW XYZ Dragon Catapult Cannon. Now, in this instance, you can then use his effect, banish, whatever. If instead of going into the Armed Dragon or whatever, the level 10, you would have kept it here, you could turn these 2 into, I don't know, IP Masquerena. That's a thing. I tended not to do that just because you're likely to have hand advantage. But regardless, these guys are getting exiled to summon that guy. And that, my friends, is how you Chazz it up. So yeah, let's go to the outro. There you go, folks. So whether you yell Chazz it up or Manjome Thunda, this is a deck you can be proud of. So yeah, this is my updated Ojama, or Chazz Turbo, if you wanted to. If you like what you see, of course, all that shenanigans. Make sure to like, favorite, comment. Tell me what you think, any improvements you would make, changes, whatever. And yeah, this is Meh, Pig and Meh, signing out.